Yo people, welcome back to another review. The Ahsoka finale is out, and for me, it was kind of what I expected, but they did add some interesting stuff to it that I guess I wasn't fully expecting. But having saying that, a lot of the stuff they did leave kind of open-ended. Overall, I was happy with the episode. It was a pretty good landing, wrapping up a pretty good season. Heir to the Empire has officially begun with Thrawn returning. And I said in my previous video, Disney will show us in this episode if Ahsoka will be the protagonist to the heir to the Empire, or will they keep it Luke Skywalker. We know Disney doesn't like Luke Skywalker, but they answered it in this episode, and it's a surprise that they're going to make Luke the main hero, having consistently shat on him. I'd give this episode a 7 out of 10, but I'll be honest, a lot of this is down to the potential and the unanswered stuff. I'll start with what I didn't like. For me, I'd say Sabine using the force push on Ezra to get him onto the ship. I think it was a bit forced. I didn't mind the lightsaber one because the lightsaber is obviously much lighter, and it reminded me of when Luke first pulls the lightsaber towards him on Hoth to save himself, so it was a nice parallel. They had been teasing the Sabine using the force thing, so I guess it kind of makes sense, but I think the Ezra thing was a bit too much personally. Another thing I didn't like was Ahsoka and Sabine being so happy despite having lost. Like, the mood felt like it was too nice considering what just happened. I understand the whole it is what it is and there's no point on reflecting on the past kind of attitude, but I would have wanted to see more frustration, more disappointment from the characters because they did ultimately lose. I also didn't like that Thrawn barely escaped considering the head start that he had on top of that. The fact that Ezra somehow managed to escape as well without being detected at all was pretty weird. I'm all for Ezra escaping if they actually show how it happened, because when he arrived onto the New Republic ship, you could see he was being accompanied by 2 other ships when he arrived back. So did he meet someone else before arriving to the New Republic ship? What's going on? Like, they need to explain that. Having said that, I'm just glad he's back. I would have liked his scene with Heir to be also an introduction to Jason and just see a nice moment between Jason and Ezra, but I hope they save that for another time and they don't skip it like they skipped the Ahsoka and Luke first ever meeting. I personally would have boosted the score of this episode if we would have had an end credit that showed us Luke, Leia, or both of them to really get that heir to the Empire confirmation, but I also guess that they're saving this for future content. I personally believe that Star Wars will recast Luke, Han, and Leia, and like I mentioned in my last video, Mark Hamill has already said that he's fine with this and that they should go forward with this idea. Now let's get into the positives, and the first huge thing was seeing Baylan in front of the Mortis Gods statues. Even with that, there's a lot of unanswered questions and a good tease as to what's to come. The statue of the father was pointing forwards as Baylan looked on, and there was like this shining light if you looked at it closely. I wonder what that shining light is. I know the death has kind of potentially impacted the storyline and where they're taking this, but he was a really good character, a new, fresh, original idea, and I really liked it, so I hope they can recast with all due respect and really take this character forward and flesh him out even more. I think they teased heavily that he is the father, but what one thinks of themselves and what one is are completely different things. I'll be making another video and going into more detail in terms of the Mortis Gods. As for Shin, she seems to kind of be wanting to gather all the bandits and kind of just be the leader of them, or something as a means of gaining power and kind of having her first solo role, being in charge, having leadership and all of that stuff. So again, another character with a lot of potential that is a fresh original idea. Overall, happy with Baylan and Shin. Can't wait to see more of them. Another positive, Ezra constructing his lightsaber. I actually really like that. It's technically the first time we've seen this in live action, if you exclude the Return of the Jedi deleted scene where Luke is constructing his. But Ezra himself was a breath of fresh air into this whole show. His character had so much charisma, his actor played the role very well, and I can't wait to see more of Ezra Bridger. The lightsaber construction scene led us to finally hearing why Sabine and Ahsoka had split up in the first place, and it was pretty interesting to hear that it was Ahsoka's insecurities about Sabine which caused the split. I would have liked to have seen this in some sort of flashback or something, and it would have been nice to see maybe Sabine tapping into the dark side. Even just seeing that would have made the Ezra force push thing make a lot more sense, but I guess, as always, we just have to hear it and take their word for it, to be honest, but that's how it is. At least that scene keeps Ahsoka's logic consistent as well when it comes to the whole why she rejected Grogu because he was emotional, because now it makes sense. Sabine was like that, she rejected. Grogu's like that, she rejected. So now it kind of further boosts Anakin's lesson. Speaking of Ahsoka, I actually like that she is stuck in this new galaxy, as it saves her from being in the sequels, number one, and number two, it gives her character a higher calling in life, if that makes sense. Since she was already pretty powerful in the regular galaxy, it kind of opens up more room for Luke Skywalker to be the hero in the Heir to the Empire, as he should be. Having said that, Ahsoka is going to be in this kind of Mortis Gods storyline, so she won't be shoved to the side. She's still going to have a really interesting storyline going forward, I assume, for season 2 of Ahsoka. I'm not sure about Sabine, since she may be a liability in this, and she might struggle just because everyone that's left is pretty powerful and she's not really there yet. Like, yeah, she can use the Force now, but she's still not at her full potential. I would have thought that Sabine would have left with Ezra, but storyline wise, it was nice to see that she's stuck by her master even though they've had a rocky relationship. Let's move on to Thrawn and his speech just as he was about to leave. It was very well done. That's the most accurate Thrawn thing that he's done all show. And it was a nice flex. It just shows how confident he is and just how much of a menace he's going to be in the regular galaxy now that he has returned. As for him and the Night Sisters, we see them arriving to Dathomir, as most people predicted. And on top of that, the boxes are most likely going to contain the dead Night Sisters and potentially Zabraks, or just the Night Sisters. Dathomir will rise again after they all get resurrected from those boxes. Speaking of the Night Sisters and their magic, I've seen a lot of people complain about the zombie stormtrooper thing, people saying that this isn't Star Wars and everything. George Lucas literally was in charge of Clone Wars when they got introduced, so that whole thing is debunked. And I actually like that the stormtroopers were kind of zombified, because usually they're easy to defeat, but in this form it allows them to be more of a difficult opposition, since they're still awful at attacking, but them just being a nuisance and staying alive is kind of annoying to shake off when facing them, and it becomes a numbers game and you have to kind of play your cards correctly. Last but not least, the Anakin return as a Force ghost. They left it to the very end, and this was something that I wanted to see from this show. I would have actually taken points off of it if we didn't see it. He seemed proud of Ahsoka because she finally understood the teachings from episode 5. As always, it's good to see Hayden back, getting the respect and the love that he deserves. But I'm not one of those fans that lets Hayden's return just make everything a 10 out of 10 because he's the GOAT, he's the king, blah, blah, all of that stuff. We still have to give a balanced and an honest review, and I feel like that's what I've done. Also, one last thing. Why wasn't he in his Return of the Jedi robes? Just saying. But yeah, let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the episode, as well as where you think things are going to go from here. Drop a like on the video as well, as it helps the channel massively to expand. Sub to the channel if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for your time.